Okay, this video is going to cover an explanation of why the answers are as such for the method call, method header matching review. And so what we want to look at first, we're going to kind of compare them up like this. Here's one of the important things to consider. When we did our method calls at the very beginning, you'll notice that the method calls were on lines by themselves. So they were just, that was the whole line was the method call. And they were calling other methods, and there was no return type. There was nothing to return. The method just did its thing, it was done, there's nothing that brought back to the method call. And so when there is a void, which means no return type, which means no return statement, then these method calls are on lines by themselves. And so as we look at this, we can see then that this is on by itself, and it's being connected with a method header that has no return type, or exactly, so there's no return statement. So all you're looking for is the fact that this is passing two items, a string and an int. So in the method header, there should be a string declaration and an int declaration. That's all there is to it. So here you have no return type. So there is just, it's on a line by itself. All it's passing is one item, and it's a string. And so it matches up with a single string being declared in the method header. And the same thing happens as we look at, let's say, number 4 does the same thing. Okay, it's void, no return type. There's no argument being passed, so there's no parameter variables. In number 5, there's one int that's being passed, one int in the parameter, one int being declared. And then number 7, what's just a single double, is being declared with no return type. And I think we have one more. So the last one, I think 8, there's two items being returned, and the first one's an int and a double, and then so the first one here is an int, and the second variable that's being declared is a double. So that's how those work. And so then, well, what about the other ones that, when there is a return type, then they have a different look on the method call. And so when we find, let's take a look at number 3. So number 3, what we see is that we have a return type, which means that there is going to be a return statement. So now when we start getting a return type, then what we see then is that we actually have a return statement. And so the value that's being returned, whatever this value is, being returned to the method call, it needs to have a variable in which it will store that return value. And so that's why now we have a variable and an assignment operator on the same line as the method call. And the idea here is that the return type is an int, which is the data type of what's being returned. So this int as the return type is because product, which is being returned, is an int. Well, the int, of course, needs to be stored in an int. And so we see that new num is an int. So all these three or four things all relate together. So if we go back to this, then what we see here is a mess. So on number 3, you see there's going to be a return statement. It's going to return a double. So when it returns it back to the method call, it's going to take that double and store it in a variable. So that variable better be a double. And let's just look at one more. So the method header says we have a return type, which means there's going to be a return statement, which means it's going to return an int back to the memory or the method call. And so that int is going to be stored in a variable, and that variable better be an int. And so that is how you can tell the difference. And of course, along with that, then we go back to what we were talking about before. There's a double being passed, just one argument being passed. So we have one variable that is a double, as this is a double that's being passed, and so these match. And that's pretty much how it works. Hope that helps.